Information Canapule. The year is 1962, a year that would be etched into the annals of history for its intense geopolitical drama. The world watches with bated breath as two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, stand on the brink of nuclear war. The Cuban Missile Crisis encapsulates the fear and uncertainty of the Cold War era. It was a moment when the world teetered on the edge of unprecedented catastrophe. For nearly half a century, from World War II until the fall of the Berlin Wall, the planet was locked in a high-stakes ideological struggle. The Berlin Wall itself became a stark symbol of this division. This was not a war fought with conventional weapons. Instead, it was a war of nerves, where the threat of nuclear annihilation loomed large. It was a war of ideology, espionage, proxy conflicts, and the ever-present threat of nuclear annihilation. Spies and secret agents became the unsung soldiers of this hidden war. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged from World War II as dominant powers, but their alliance quickly dissolved into suspicion and mistrust. The seeds of the Cold War were sown in the ashes of the Second World War. The ideological gulf and competing visions for the post-war world laid the groundwork for a global standoff. Each side sought to expand its influence and promote its way of life. The shadow of the Cold War touched every corner of the globe, shaping political alliances and fueling regional conflicts. Its legacy continues to influence international relations to this day. The seeds of the Cold War were sown even before World War II ended. The world was already divided by ideological lines, and the end of the war only brought these differences to the forefront. At the Potsdam Conference in 1945, the victorious Allied leaders met to determine the fate of post-war Europe. This meeting was crucial as it set the stage for the geopolitical landscape that would dominate the latter half of the 20th century. However, the wartime alliance began to unravel as ideological differences and mistrust came to the fore. The unity that had been forged in the fires of war was now cracking under the pressure of peace. Stalin sought to establish a sphere of influence in Eastern Europe. His actions were driven by a desire to create a buffer zone against any future invasions. The United States, wary of Soviet expansionism, viewed Stalin's actions with growing alarm. American leaders feared that the spread of communism would threaten democratic nations worldwide. The dropping of the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki further heightened tensions. This unprecedented display of power made the stakes of the emerging Cold War even higher. It fueled Soviet paranoia and intensified the arms race. Both superpowers began to stockpile weapons, preparing for a conflict that, thankfully, never came to direct blows. In 1946, George Kennan's long telegram argued that the Soviet Union was inherently expansionist and that the United States must pursue a policy of containment. This policy would shape American foreign strategy for decades to come, marking the beginning of a new era in international relations. The late 1940s and early 1950s saw a rapid escalation of the Cold War. Tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union were at an all-time high, with both sides vying for global influence and power. In 1948, the Soviets orchestrated a coup in Czechoslovakia, installing a communist government. This move was seen as a direct threat to Western democracies and heightened the sense of urgency in the West. This was followed by the Berlin blockade, an attempt by the Soviet Union to starve West Berlin into submission. The blockade was a significant test of wills between the two superpowers. The United States responded with the Berlin Airlift, a massive humanitarian effort that saw thousands of flights delivering essential supplies to the people of West Berlin. This operation showcased the resolve and capability of the Western allies. The Berlin blockade marked a turning point, solidifying the division of Europe into two hostile blocs. The Iron Curtain had descended, separating the communist East from the capitalist West. In 1949, NATO was formed, a military alliance of Western nations designed to counter Soviet aggression. This alliance was a clear signal of unity and mutual defense among its members. The Soviet Union countered in 1955 with the Warsaw Pact, a collective defense treaty among 8 communist states of Central and Eastern Europe. This pact was the Eastern Bloc's answer to NATO. The arms race, driven by mutual suspicion, created a climate of fear and uncertainty. Both sides amassed vast stockpiles of nuclear weapons, leading to an era where the threat of total annihilation loomed large over the world. Battlegrounds beyond borders, proxy wars and global strife. The Cold War was far from bloodless, with the superpowers waging a series of proxy wars. These conflicts, often in developing nations, became testing grounds for Cold War ideologies. The Korean War, from 1950 to 1953, was one of the earliest and most brutal proxy wars. The Vietnam War, spanning from 1954 to 1975, exemplified the human toll of the Cold War. These proxy wars demonstrated the global reach of the Cold War and the devastating consequences of superpower rivalry. Beyond the battlefield, the cultural and sporting front. The Cold War rivalry extended into the realms of culture and sports. Both the United States and the Soviet Union recognized the power of culture and propaganda. The space race, epitomized by the Soviet Union's launch of Sputnik in 1957, became a potent symbol of technological competition. The United States responded with the formation of NASA and the Apollo 11 mission in 1969. Sporting events, particularly the Olympic Games, became proxy battlegrounds for national pride and ideological supremacy. The thaw cracks in the Soviet facade. By the early 1980s, the Soviet Union began to show signs of strain. The election of Mikhail Gorbachev as General Secretary in 1985 marked a turning point. Gorbachev introduced policies of glasnost and perestroika to revitalize the Soviet system. Glasnost unleashed long-suppressed criticisms, while perestroika led to economic instability. In 1989, a wave of revolutions swept across Eastern Europe, toppling communist regimes. The fall of the Berlin Wall in November 1989 marked the symbolic end of the Cold War. The legacy of the Cold War echoes in a new millennium. The Cold War continues to cast a long shadow over international relations. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 left the United States as the world's sole superpower. One significant legacy is the proliferation of nuclear weapons. The expansion of NATO has been a source of tension in the post-Cold War era. Russia, under Vladimir Putin, views NATO expansion as a threat and has responded assertively. The Cold War serves as a reminder of the dangers of ideological extremism and unchecked militarism. It highlights the importance of diplomacy and the pursuit of common ground in an interconnected world. Don't forget to support me and subscribe to my channel, like and share so that this content reaches more people. Thank you.